It was one of those gray mornings where the sky seemed to press down on everything, making even the air feel heavy. I was sipping my coffee, trying to shake off the remnants of a restless night, when my phone buzzed with a text. It was from Chloe, my niece. We didn't text often, so seeing her name light up my screen was a surprise. "Need your help. Can't talk here. It's about Mom. Please don't tell anyone." My heart skipped a beat. Chloe was a smart kid, but for her to reach out like this meant something serious was up. "My name is Harper, by the way. I'm a high school guidance counselor, so dealing with teenage drama is kind of my thing, but this felt different. Personal. I had managed to keep a safe distance from my sister Delilah's chaos for years, but it seemed like today was the day that was about to change. I called Chloe immediately, but it went straight to voicemail. I tried to focus on my morning routine, but the nagging worry wouldn't let go. Delilah, my older sister, had always been a whirlwind of charm and manipulation, and I had spent a good part of my life dodging her storms. But Chloe's message was like a beacon, pulling me back into the family drama I'd tried so hard to escape. Ethan, my fiancé, noticed my distraction as I paced the kitchen. "Everything okay?" he asked, his voice calm and grounding. "Chloe sent me a weird text," I replied, handing him my phone. "I'm worried about her." He read it, his brow furrowing slightly. "Do you think it's serious? With Delilah involved?" "Probably." Ethan nodded, understanding the unspoken complexities. He knew how tangled things could get with my family. "You should go see her. I'll cover for you at the school if you need me to." I appreciated his support more than I could say. "Thanks. I'll see if I can get in touch with her first." I tried calling Chloe again, but still no answer. My mind raced with possibilities, none of them good. I decided to drive over to their house. Delilah's scandals were usually nothing more than exaggerated tales she spun, but Chloe's plea felt different. Urgent. As I drove, memories of growing up with Delilah flooded back. She'd always had this way of drawing people in, only to turn on them when they least expected it. I'd learned to keep my distance, but Chloe didn't have that luxury. She was stuck in Delilah's web, and it was clear she needed help. When I arrived, the house looked the same as ever, but there was a tension in the air. Delilah greeted me at the door with her usual dazzling smile, but there was something off about it. Forced, maybe. "Harper, what a surprise," she said, her voice dripping with false warmth. "What brings you by?" "I just wanted to check in on Chloe," I replied, trying to keep my tone casual. "She's fine," Delilah said, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Busy with school stuff, you know how it is." But I knew Delilah too well to take her words at face value. There was something she wasn't saying, and I was determined to find out what. As I left, my phone buzzed again. Another text from Chloe. Just 2 words. "Don't trust." It was clear now. Whatever Delilah was hiding, Chloe was caught in the middle, and it was up to me to unravel this mess. Little did I know, this was just the beginning, and the secrets waiting to be uncovered would change everything. I parked a few houses down from Delilah's place, hoping to catch Chloe on her way out. The morning chill seeped through my jacket, but I barely noticed, too focused on the house and the tension crackling around it. I didn't have to wait long before I saw Chloe slip out the front door, her backpack slung over one shoulder, eyes darting around like she was expecting a trap. "Chloe!" I called softly, stepping out of the car. Her head snapped in my direction, relief washing over her face as she hurried towards me. "Aunt Harper," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thanks for coming. What's going on?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Your texts worried me." She glanced back at the house, then back at me, her expression a mix of fear and determination. "It's Mom. She's in trouble, but she's trying to drag everyone down with her." "Trouble how?" I pressed gently, sensing the weight of whatever secret she was carrying. "Work stuff. Money. I don't know all the details, but she's been acting weird. Paranoid. And she's blaming you for everything." "Me?" I asked, startled by the accusation. "Yeah. She says you're trying to turn everyone against her, that you're jealous or something." Chloe shook her head, frustration etched in every line of her face. "It's like she's creating enemies out of thin air." I sighed, feeling the familiar tug of family drama trying to pull me under. "I'm not jealous of your mom, Chloe. I just want you to be okay." "I know," she said, her voice softening. "That's why I reached out. I need someone I can trust." Before I could respond, the front door swung open, and Delilah stepped out, her gaze zeroing in on us. Her smile was still in place, but there was a sharpness to it now, like a blade hidden in silk. "Harper," she called, walking towards us with a calculated grace. "What a coincidence running into you here." I braced myself, knowing this wouldn't be a simple conversation. "I wanted to check on Chloe," I said, keeping my tone neutral. Delilah's eyes flicked to Chloe, then back to me, her smile never wavering. "She's fine. Aren't you, Chloe?" Chloe nodded, but her eyes told a different story. "Yeah, Mom." "There's no need to worry, Harper," Delilah continued, her voice smooth and reassuring. "Everything's under control." But I knew her well enough to hear the cracks beneath the surface. "If you say so," I replied, not backing down. Delilah's smile faltered for a split second, a flash of something darker lurking beneath. "You should come over for dinner soon. It's been too long." "I'll think about it," I said, knowing full well it would be a battlefield rather than a meal. As I drove away, Chloe's words echoed in my mind. Delilah was spinning a web of lies, and now I was caught in it too. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that maybe this time, I wouldn't just be a passive player in her game. Maybe it was time to take a stand, not just for Chloe, but for myself. The stakes were higher than ever, and the truth was the only weapon I had. The next morning, I was still reeling from my encounter with Delilah when my phone rang. It was my mother, Judith. Her voice was as steady as ever, but there was an edge to it that made my stomach tighten. "Harper, we need to talk about this nonsense you're stirring up with Delilah," she said, skipping over any pleasantries. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice calm. "Mom, I'm just trying to help Chloe." "Help her? By accusing your sister of God knows what?" She shot back, disbelief dripping from every word. "She's in trouble, Mom. Delilah's making things worse." "Delilah says you're the one causing trouble," Judith replied, her tone clipped. "You need to stop meddling." I clenched the phone tighter, frustration bubbling up. "I'm not meddling. I'm worried about Chloe." "Chloe is fine," she insisted, as if saying it enough times would make it true. "You need to let this go, Harper." As the call ended, I felt that familiar sense of isolation creeping in. My parents had always turned a blind eye to Delilah's antics, and it seemed nothing had changed. I needed to find another way to reach Chloe without getting stonewalled by family politics. That afternoon, I decided to meet Chloe after school. We found a quiet corner in a nearby park, away from prying eyes and ears. Chloe looked exhausted, her usual spark dimmed by the weight of her secrets. "Thanks for meeting me," she said, dropping onto a bench next to me. "Things at home are tense." I nodded, understanding more than I liked to admit. "I talked to Grandma. She's convinced everything's fine." Chloe let out a bitter laugh. "Of course she does. Mom's got everyone wrapped around her finger." "What exactly is going on with your mom?" I asked, trying to piece together the fragments of the truth. Chloe hesitated, glancing around as if the trees might be listening. "She's been borrowing money from work. A lot of it. I overheard her talking about it on the phone." My heart sank. This was worse than I'd thought. "Chloe, that's serious. If she gets caught, she'll blame it on someone else," Chloe interrupted, her voice tinged with anger. "She always does." The more we talked, the clearer it became that Delilah's world was on the brink of collapse. And Chloe was caught in the middle, trying to hold it all together. As we sat there, a new idea began to take shape. It was risky, but it might be the only way to help Chloe and expose the truth. "Chloe, would you be willing to stay with me for a while? Just until things settle down?" Her eyes widened, surprise and hope mingling on her face. "You'd really do that?" "Of course," I said, my resolve hardening. "We'll figure this out together." Before Chloe could respond, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Delilah, and it was a single chilling line. "Stay out of this, or else." The threat hung in the air between us, but it only strengthened my resolve. Delilah could try to scare me off, but I wasn't backing down. Chloe needed me, and for the first time, I realized that standing up to Delilah wasn't just about protecting Chloe. It was about reclaiming my own life from the shadows of her manipulations. A few days after my meeting with Chloe, I was in my office at the high school, going over student files, when my phone buzzed with an email notification. It was from a prestigious counseling center on the West Coast, offering me a position I had long dreamed of. The salary, the location, the opportunities, it was all perfect. But the timing couldn't have been worse. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of the decision pressing down on me. This was the kind of offer that could change my life, but accepting it would mean leaving Chloe just when she needed me most. I couldn't shake the feeling that this was a test, a crossroads where I had to choose between my career and my family. Later that evening, I shared the news with Ethan over dinner. His eyes lit up with pride, but he quickly noticed my hesitation. "You don't seem excited," he said, studying my face. "I am, but..." I trailed off, struggling to put my conflict into words. Chloe needs me right now. I can't just leave her. Ethan nodded, understanding the unspoken dilemma. Harper, you've worked so hard for something like this. But I get it. Family comes first. His support was comforting, but it didn't make the decision any easier. I was caught between two worlds, each pulling me in a different direction. The next morning, I met Chloe at our usual spot in the park to talk things over. As we sat on the bench, I tried to gauge her mood. She seemed more at ease, but there was still a shadow of worry in her eyes. I got a job offer, I began, watching her reaction closely. It's a big deal, but it's far away. Chloe's face fell slightly, though she tried to mask it with a brave smile. Wow, that's amazing. You deserve it. But it means I'd have to move, I continued, my voice tinged with regret. And I don't want to leave you behind. Chloe looked down at her hands, her silence speaking volumes. Finally, she said, You should take it, Aunt Harper. You've always been there for me. I'll figure things out. Her words were selfless, but they only made my heart ache more. I'm not going anywhere until I know you're safe and okay. As we talked, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Meet me at the old diner tonight. Come alone. It was unsigned, but I had a sinking feeling about who it might be. That evening, I drove to the diner, the neon sign flickering in the twilight. Inside, I found Delilah waiting at a booth, her expression unreadable. I slid into the seat across from her, bracing for whatever was coming. Harper, she said, her voice low and controlled. I heard about your job offer. How? I asked, suspicion creeping in. Mom and Dad told me. They think you're running away. I'm not running, I replied, meeting her gaze. I'm trying to do what's best for everyone. Delilah leaned back, her eyes glinting with something I couldn't quite place. You always were the golden child. But this time it's not about you. It's about Chloe. I nodded, trying to keep my emotions in check. Exactly. And that's why I'm staying. For a moment, her mask slipped, revealing a flicker of vulnerability. She's all I have left, Harper. The admission caught me off guard, but before I could respond, Delilah's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, her expression hardening. I have to go, she said abruptly, standing up. As she left, I realized that this wasn't just about Chloe or me. Delilah was fighting her own battles, and the lines between villain and victim were blurrier than ever. The stakes had never been higher, and I was more determined than ever to see this through, no matter the cost. The day of the family dinner loomed over me like a storm cloud. I knew it was a powder keg waiting to explode, but I also knew it was time to confront Delilah with everything I had learned. As I prepared to leave, Ethan pulled me into a hug, his warmth steadying my nerves. Remember, you're not alone in this, he murmured, his voice a comforting anchor. I nodded, grateful for his unwavering support. Thanks, Ethan. I'll call you if things get out of hand. At my parents' house, the air was thick with tension. Judith and Martin greeted me with forced smiles, their eyes flicking nervously between me and Delilah. Chloe sat quietly at the table, her gaze fixed on her plate. Dinner started off with the usual small talk, but the undercurrents of unease were impossible to ignore. Delilah, ever the performer, kept the conversation light, but I could see the cracks in her facade. Her eyes darted to me every so often, as if daring me to speak up. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. Delilah, we need to talk about what's really going on, I said, my voice cutting through the chatter. She paused, her fork hovering midair. What do you mean, Harper? Chloe told me about the money from work, I said, choosing my words carefully. And I know you've been blaming me to cover your tracks. The room went silent, the weight of my words settling over us like a shroud. Delilah's eyes flashed with anger, but there was something else there too, fear. Harper, that's enough, Judith interjected, her voice a mix of desperation and denial. We're here to have a nice family dinner. Mom, this isn't just about dinner, I replied, trying to keep my frustration in check. It's about Chloe and what she's been dealing with. Chloe looked up, her eyes pleading with me to continue. It's true, Grandma. I've been scared and confused, and I didn't know who to trust. Delilah's composure slipped, her voice rising in defensive panic. Chloe, how could you? I'm your mother. And I'm her aunt, I said, standing my ground. I'm not going to let her get hurt because of your mistakes. The room erupted into chaos, voices overlapping in a cacophony of accusations and denials. Martin tried to calm everyone down, but his attempts were futile. Delilah's mask was cracking, and with it, the fragile peace we had all been pretending to maintain. In the midst of the turmoil, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It was a photo of a document, evidence of Delilah's fraudulent activities. The sender was anonymous, but it was clear someone else was involved, someone who wanted the truth to come out. I showed the photo to Delilah, her face going pale as she realized the extent of her exposure. "Who sent this?" she demanded, panic edging her voice. "I don't know," I replied, my mind racing. "But it changes everything." The revelation shifted the power dynamic, leaving Delilah vulnerable and exposed. The stakes had never been higher, and I was standing at the precipice of a decision that could change everything. As the family dinner imploded around us, I realized that this was my moment to choose, between revenge and justice, between tearing down and building up. And whatever choice I made, it would define not just my future, but Chloe's as well. The aftermath of the dinner left a raw, open wound in the family. I drove home with Chloe, the silence between us heavy with unspoken fears and uncertainties. The document I'd received was now a ticking time bomb, threatening to destroy what little stability we had left. When we got home, Ethan was waiting, concern etched on his face. "How did it go?" he asked, though the answer was written all over my expression. "Worse than expected," I admitted, sinking into the couch. Chloe sat beside me, her shoulders hunched as if trying to make herself smaller. Ethan joined us, his presence a comforting balm. "What's the plan now?" I shook my head, feeling the weight of the situation pressing down on me. "I don't know. Delilah's in deeper than I thought, and now this document." Chloe looked up, her eyes wide with worry. "What if she goes to jail?" The question hung in the air, a grim possibility we hadn't fully faced. "We'll figure something out," I promised, though the words felt hollow. The next morning, I received another message, this time with a video attachment. It was footage of Delilah at work, clearly showing her involvement in the fraudulent activities. My heart sank. Whoever was sending these knew exactly how to push us to the brink. I showed the video to Ethan, my hands trembling slightly. "This could ruin her," I said, the enormity of it all hitting me like a tidal wave. "And you?" he asked gently. "What does this mean for you?" I didn't have an answer. The line between justice and revenge blurred, leaving me adrift. I wanted to protect Chloe, but at what cost? Delilah was still my sister, flawed and broken as she was. Later that day, I met with Delilah at a small cafe, hoping to find some way forward. She looked exhausted, the confident facade she always wore now a mere shadow. "Harper," she began, her voice brittle. "I know you have something on me. Just don't do this." "Delilah, it's not about hurting you," I said, trying to reach the sister I once knew. "It's about Chloe. She deserves better." Her eyes flashed with a mix of anger and desperation. "You think I don't know that? Everything I've done, it was for her. But it's hurting her," I replied, my voice firm but gentle. "And if this gets out, it'll hurt her even more." Delilah looked away, her silence speaking volumes. I realized then that she was trapped, just as much as Chloe was. But before I could press further, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, her expression shifting to one of panic. "I have to go," she said abruptly, standing up. "Delilah, wait." I started, but she was already gone, leaving me with more questions than answers. As I sat there, I realized how close we were to losing everything. The evidence was damning, and the clock was ticking. The path to resolution seemed impossible, and I was left grappling with the harsh reality that sometimes, even the best intentions can lead to devastating consequences. The stakes had never been higher, and I was running out of time to find a way to save not just Chloe, but all of us. The days following my meeting with Delilah were a blur of tension and uncertainty. Chloe had officially moved in with us, her decision a quiet rebellion against the chaos her mother had created. It was a bold move, and one that seemed to shift the very foundation of our family dynamics. But as much as I wanted to protect her, I knew the storm was far from over. The showdown came sooner than expected. Delilah showed up at my doorstep one evening, her expression a mix of desperation and defiance. I opened the door, bracing myself for whatever was about to unfold. "Harper," she said, her voice strained. "We need to talk." I stepped aside, letting her in. Chloe watched from the living room, her face a mask of worry. Delilah's eyes flicked to her daughter, a silent plea passing between them. "What do you want, Delilah?" I asked, keeping my tone steady. She took a deep breath, trying to maintain her composure. "I need that video. If it gets out, I'll lose everything." "And what about Chloe?" I countered, my voice rising. "You've already put her through so much." Delilah's facade cracked, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I know I've messed up, Harper, but I'm trying to fix it. By dragging us down with you?" I shot back, the tension between us taut as a wire. Chloe stood up, her voice trembling but firm. Mom, I can't live like this anymore. I need a safe place. Delilah's gaze softened, the weight of Chloe's words hitting her like a physical blow. I never wanted this for you, Chloe. I thought I was doing what was best. Then let me stay here, Chloe said, her plea hanging in the air. Delilah hesitated, her internal struggle playing out in the silence. Finally, she nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Okay, you can stay with Harper. The unexpected concession was a turning point, but I knew it wasn't the end. Delilah turned to me, her expression a mix of vulnerability and resolve. I'll do whatever it takes to make things right. Just help me. I studied her, the sister I'd known and the stranger she'd become. This was the moment I'd been dreading and anticipating, the chance to choose between revenge and redemption. All right, I said, my voice steady but firm. But you have to come clean. No more lies. Delilah nodded, the relief evident in her eyes. I will. I promise. As we stood there, the tension slowly giving way to a fragile truce, I realized that this was more than just a confrontation. It was a chance to heal, to rebuild what had been broken. The path forward wouldn't be easy, but it was a path nonetheless. In that moment, I understood that justice wasn't about punishment, it was about making things right. And as Delilah left, a tentative hope blossomed in my chest. We had faced the storm, and though the skies were still cloudy, there was a glimmer of light on the horizon. The weeks following the confrontation were a mix of rebuilding and reflection. Chloe settled into her new routine with us, her laughter slowly returning, a melody of healing that filled the house. It was a fragile peace, but one that felt precious and hard-earned. Delilah, true to her word, began to make amends. She faced the consequences of her actions at work, taking responsibility in a way I hadn't seen before. It was a start, a step towards redemption, and though the path was long, it was one she was finally willing to walk. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow through the living room, Delilah called. Her voice was softer, more grounded. Harper, I just wanted to say thank you. For everything. I smiled, the weight of our shared history easing just a little. We're family, Delilah. We'll find our way through this. She paused as if gathering her thoughts. I know I've been difficult, but I'm trying to change. For Chloe and for myself. It was a small admission, but it felt monumental. I believe you, I replied, and I meant it. After the call, I found Chloe on the porch, her eyes reflecting the fading light. How are you feeling? I asked, joining her. Better, she said, her voice steady. It's weird, but I think Mom's really trying this time. I nodded, understanding the mix of hope and caution in her words. People can change, Chloe. It's not easy, but it's possible. She turned to me, a question in her eyes. Do you think we'll ever be a normal family? Normal's overrated, I said with a chuckle. But we can be a family that supports each other, that learns from our mistakes. Her smile was small but genuine, a testament to the resilience she'd found within herself. I like that idea. As the days turned into weeks, life found a new rhythm. I decided to decline the job offer from the counseling center, choosing instead to focus on the life we were building here. It was a decision that felt right, rooted in the understanding that home was more than a place. It was the people we chose to share it with. Yet, as we moved forward, a lingering question remained. The identity of the person who had sent the incriminating evidence about Delilah was still a mystery. It was a puzzle piece that didn't quite fit, a reminder that some stories never fully close. But perhaps that was okay. Life, after all, was full of uncertainties. In the quiet moments, I reflected on the journey we'd all taken. The themes of revenge and justice had woven through our lives, challenging us, shaping us. But in the end, it was forgiveness and understanding that paved the way forward. As I watched Chloe and Ethan laughing together over dinner, I felt a deep sense of peace. We had weathered the storm, and though the future was unwritten, I knew we would face it together. And that, more than anything, was the true resolution we'd been searching for.